Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 from my kitchen table in Phuket, Thailand, and fans blasting around me, so you will be hearing some background noise. And I'm working from a single screen here, so not editing, so you're going to see my little quicks as we go. All right, so where I left off in my last episode was I explained the nth child using the, for example here, 4n plus 2, using a pattern to match a group and then the element in that group in my previous video. A few questions came out of that, which I'm going to cover off here. This is my second attempt at this video. The first one I tried to cover too many questions in, so I'm going to split this into two videos that are kind of different. All right, so the first question was, why did I use the asterisk or star, we'll call that a star, instead of saying div because they're divs? Okay, now that's a really simple example for that. If I say that's a div, it works perfectly, right? The issue we have with that, if we decide to change our HTML structure but we wanted to keep our visual structure the same, it doesn't work because we're going to change our HTML structure. Now I'll show you what I mean here. If we go in and delete all these cells except for one, okay, we're going to turn our div here into we've got some weird stuff happening here. I can't access it from there, so I'll have to come back over here. I'm going to turn our grid into a UL. We're going to turn our cell into an li. Then we go into our attributes and we're going to put an aria label. Or maybe we'll call this features. Okay, so now what happens is a screen reader gets to our UL. It reads out, I've got a list of features with X amount of items. So this makes pure good sense for accessibility. Okay, that's a simple way of doing that. Now, if I start adding my LIs, what we will notice is enough, too many. Sorry, Brix is just trying to catch up here. Too many, yeah. Okay, if we go back to our CSS rule, because I made that a div, our rule no longer applies. If I made that a star, it still applies. So the beauty of using a star when you're just trying to style up a group of elements and you don't care whether it's a div, a li, a figure, you don't really care what it is, you just want to match that pattern, that style. It makes sense to use an asterisk because you don't care what it is. You want it to have the same style applied regardless of what the HTML element actually is. So that makes sense to do that. Okay, now because that's a UL, we need to go back to our grid and we need to set our margin to 0, override the defaults, and our padding to 0 so that we can use it as a UL without all the extra margin and spacing. Now it looks exactly the same as when it was divs, but it is a semantic UL with LIs, which is good for accessibility. Okay, so that is the reason we do that. Now, another question which was really simple was, how do we get this floating structure here? Simple answer to that is this is an advanced thema feature. When you turn it on, all you do is double click on your structure word up here and then you can move your structure around, which gives you more screen real estate. And then if you use the little bar on the side here, you can actually hide that as well, and you've got a lot more room to work with on the screen. So let's leave that structure there. Now the next question was, is there a real world example of where I have used this? And I'm going to show you that there is. So I'm going to go into our grid, I'm going to delete most of these. I need 4 to show you my example. This is an actual example I had to do for a client. So I'm going to go back to my grid. I'm going to make that a 2-column grid. So we've just got these two here. On my grid, so I'm just going to delete these again. Should have used a class for this, but I'm being lazy. So on my cell, I'm just going to change my aspect ratio to maybe 16:9 so we can fit on the screen a little bit better. And that again. So we need 4 of these. Now the example that I had for the client was that they wanted a pattern where it's a 2-column grid, and there was a pattern where the top left and bottom right were the same background, top right, bottom left were the same background with a repeating pattern. And that's where we use this. So we're going to say it is a group of 4, and we want the second element to be red, and we also want the third element to be red. Copy that, make that my third element. And now if I keep repeating, oops, I'm repeating icons. Sorry, Bricks is jumping. Oh, I can't blame Bricks. This could be AT. Things are just jumping around on me as I do stuff. Okay, so as you can see, as I add more cells, I get this pattern of the top left, bottom right being the same color, top right, bottom left being the same color. And then the next group of 4, I get exactly the same pattern as we go down the screen. Okay, now you'll note a problem when we go to our mobile view. I'm actually going to do it from mobile landscape. I'm going to set my grid here to be a grid of 1. Okay, and now what we notice is that now we've got the top one being a color, 2 and 3 are the same color, and then the next one is a color, next one's a color, and then we've got 2 and 3 as a color. Probably doesn't look great on mobile. So what we would do to fix that is, where is our CSS? It's not showing me. Should be on the grid. That's bizarre. Normally there's a little icon there. I'm going to hit save and refresh because something funky has gone on here. I know what it was. I was in a breakpoint. The funky things weren't happening. I was in a breakpoint, which is why it wasn't showing having CSS there. So there we go. So on this, what we're going to do is we're going to say our breakpoint here is 767. So at 768 is the next point up. So we're going to put in here a media query where we're going to say media. We're going to say our min width is 768 px. Okay, I'm going to stick our rule inside there. Use our AT Beautify CSS to tidy that up a bit. And there we go. So it's 768 pixels. We're seeing the pattern. When we go down to 767 pixels, we don't see the pattern anymore. Okay. So we want a pattern there. So what we're going to do is say media. And we're going to go max width. We're going to go 1 pixel below the other one, which would be 767 px. I'm going to grab our first rule there, and instead of saying nth child for n plus 2, we're just going to say even. Okay, so we want every even one to be red when we're less than 767 pixels. So we go to here, and now the first one's grey, second one's red, first one's grey, second one's red. So it just looks a bit better than it did before with this pattern here. So the client gets both. They get this alternating pattern on 768 and above, and then they just get it going from, alternating rows from 767 and downwards. So that is a real-world example of using these patterns, and that way you can keep adding cells and your pattern keeps growing, because it doesn't matter how many cells you've got, it will target in exactly the same way. All right, so that is the reason we use these Xn+Y patterns, and one of the reasons, I should say. So I'm going to end this here because I did want to explain more about the CSS selectors and some of the questions that came up from the previous video weren't really related to these patterns. It was more related to CSS rules, CSS combinators, CSS classes or pseudo classes. So I'm going to leave that for another video. And I hope this helps. And if it does, hit the subscribe, hit the like. Thanks, guys.